Chapter 7, The Array Infiltration. The abandoned financial district looked like a graveyard of broken dreams in the pre-dawn darkness. Skeletal remains of office towers reached toward the clouded sky, their windows long since shattered or boarded up. Weeds pushed through cracks in the sidewalks, and graffiti covered every surface that could hold paint. The economic collapse of 15 years ago had left this part of the city to rot, a convenient blind spot in the corporate surveillance network. Kael crouched behind a rusted delivery truck, watching the building that housed the secret transmission array. From the outside, it looked like every other derelict structure on the block. Broken windows, crumbling facade, no signs of life. But his enhanced vision could pick out the subtle tells that marked it as something more. The electromagnetic dampening field that surrounded the structure, the faint heat signatures of active electronics. The almost invisible fiber optic cables that ran up the side of the building, disguised as old utility lines. Rook materialized beside him like a ghost, her augmented eye clicking softly as it analyzed the target. She wore all black, her silver hair hidden under a tactical hood, and carried a bag full of equipment that could probably level a city block if used incorrectly. "Motion sensors on the ground floor," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the distant hum of traffic. "Pressure plates at the main entrance, but the service access on the north side is clean." Silas emerged from the shadows on Kael's other side, breathing hard from his reconnaissance run. Two guards inside, both human. They're running a patrol pattern, 15 minutes between sweeps of the upper floors. The transmission equipment is on the roof, just like you said. Kael checked his watch. They had been planning this operation for 6 hours, ever since leaving Rook's laboratory. The neural stabilizer she had given him was still working, keeping the chaos in his brain at bay, but he could feel it starting to weaken. The background static was creeping back, a reminder that his time was running out along with everyone else's. "The update window opens in 20 minutes, Rook said, consulting a small device that showed network traffic patterns. "We need to be in position and ready to intercept the data stream before then. Once we start, we'll have maybe 10 minutes before their security systems detect the intrusion." "And if we're caught?" Silas asked, though his expression suggested he already knew the answer. "We disappear," Rook said simply. "Synergenica doesn't take prisoners when it comes to protecting their core infrastructure, but if we succeed, we might be able to save thousands of lives." They moved across the empty street in single file, staying low and using the abandoned vehicles as cover. The service entrance was hidden in an alley between two buildings, protected by a simple electronic lock that Rook bypassed in less than 30 seconds. The door opened onto a stairwell that smelled of mold and decay. Inside, the building was a maze of empty offices and corridors. Emergency lighting provided just enough illumination to navigate, casting everything in a sickly green glow. They climbed the stairs carefully, avoiding the spots where the metal had rusted through or the concrete had cracked. Every few floors, Rook would pause to check her scanner, making sure they weren't walking into a trap. The guards were on the 8th floor when they passed, their voices echoing in the empty hallways as they discussed sports scores and complained about the night shift. Kael held his breath as they walked by the stairwell, but the guards didn't even glance in their direction. They were bored, complacent, probably not expecting anyone to be crazy enough to break into an officially non-existent facility. The roof access was protected by a more sophisticated lock, one that required both electronic bypassing and physical manipulation. Rook worked on it with the focused intensity of a surgeon, her augmented eye providing microscopic detail as she traced the internal mechanisms. After 10 minutes that felt like hours, the lock clicked open. The roof was a forest of transmission equipment, satellite dishes, and cooling units. The main array was a massive structure in the center, its dish pointed toward the Synergenica tower in the distance. Cables ran everywhere, connecting the various components in a web of communication infrastructure. The whole setup hummed with barely contained power. "There," Rook said, pointing to a junction box near the base of the main dish. "That's where we tap into the data stream. I'll need to physically splice into the fiber optic cables and install the intercept hardware." Kael watched the horizon while Rook worked. The city stretched out before them, millions of lights marking the homes and offices where people lived their lives, unaware that death might be hiding in the technology they trusted. In a few hours, the sun would rise and another day would begin. He wondered how many people would live to see it end. "Got it," Rook said, closing the junction box. She had installed a device the size of a smartphone that would monitor the data stream and inject their own code when the time was right. Now we wait for the update window. They took positions around the roof, using the transmission equipment as cover. Silas kept watch on the stairwell access while Kael monitored the building's perimeter through his enhanced vision. Rook focused on her equipment, tracking the network traffic patterns that would tell them when Synergenica began pushing the kill switch updates. The minutes crawled by with agonizing slowness. Kael found himself thinking about Lysander again, about the terror in his friend's eyes as the neural cascade tore through his brain. How many other people had died the same way? How many more would die if they failed tonight? "Here we go," Rook said suddenly, her voice tight with concentration. "The update stream is starting. I'm seeing massive data flows to the provisioning servers." Kael moved to look over her shoulder at the portable display she had set up. The screen showed streams of data flowing like digital rivers, carrying death to thousands of unsuspecting victims. "Can you intercept it?" "Working on it," Rook replied, her fingers flying over a specialized keyboard. "The encryption is military grade, but I've been preparing for this for 3 years. I know their patterns, their security protocols. Just need to find the right insertion point." The display changed, showing lines of code that scrolled by too fast for Kael to follow. But he could see that Rook was making progress, her intercept program working its way into the data stream like a virus seeking its host. "There," she said triumphantly. "I'm in, uploading the neutralization code now." The screen filled with new data as Rook's program began overwriting the kill switch instructions with harmless placeholder code. It was elegant work, the kind of hacking that required both technical skill and artistic vision. She wasn't just stopping the attack, she was turning it against itself, using Synergenica's own network to distribute a cure for the neural corruption. "How long?" Kael asked, watching the progress bar crawl across the screen. 5 minutes for the upload," Rook said. "Then another few minutes to propagate through the entire network. But we're not done yet. I need to download their target list, the complete database of who they were planning to kill." Silas appeared at Kael's elbow, his face pale with worry. "We've got company. 3 vehicles just pulled up outside, corporate security, heavily armed." Kael looked over the edge of the roof and saw the black SUVs positioned around the building. Men in tactical gear were already moving toward the entrances, their weapons drawn and ready. "How did they find us so fast?" "The intrusion triggered their security protocols," Rook said without looking up from her work. "They probably have automated systems monitoring for exactly this kind of attack. We've got maybe 2 minutes before they reach the roof." The upload progress bar was only halfway complete. Kael could hear boots on the stairs below, the security team moving fast but carefully through the building. They were professionals, probably ex-military, and they would show no mercy if they caught the intruders. "Can you speed it up?" Silas asked, checking his weapon. "Not without corrupting the data," Rook replied. "We need this information intact if we're going to expose the conspiracy. Just hold them off for another 3 minutes." Kael moved to the stairwell access and could hear the security team getting closer. They were being methodical, checking each floor thoroughly before moving up. But they would reach the roof soon, and when they did, the fight would be brief and brutal. "There has to be another way down," he said, looking around the roof desperately. "Fire escape on the south side," Silas said, pointing to a metal ladder that led down the outside of the building. "But it's exposed. They'll see us the moment we start climbing." "Better than being trapped up here," Kael replied. The sound of boots was getting louder, and he could hear voices coordinating the search. "How much longer, Rook?" 90 seconds, she said, sweat beading on her forehead despite the cool night air. "The target list is huge. They weren't just planning to kill dissidents and rivals. They were going to eliminate thousands of people across every level of society." The stairwell door burst open, and the first security operative appeared. his weapon raised and ready. Kael dove behind a cooling unit as bullets sparked off the metal around him. Silas returned fire from behind the main transmission dish, his shots forcing the operative back into cover. 60 seconds, Rook shouted over the gunfire. More operatives poured onto the roof, spreading out to surround their position. These weren't corporate rent-a-cops. They were professional soldiers with military-grade equipment and training. Kael could see laser sights dancing across the transmission equipment as they moved to flank the intruders. A grenade landed near Rook's position, and she had to abandon her equipment to avoid the explosion. The blast shattered several satellite dishes and sent debris flying across the roof. But her portable computer was still intact, still downloading the crucial data they needed. 30 seconds, she called out, crawling back to her equipment despite the bullets whining overhead. Silas was pinned down behind the transmission dish, unable to move without exposing himself to crossfire. Kael tried to provide covering fire, but his position was being overrun by operatives moving in from multiple directions. They needed a miracle, or they were all going to die on this rooftop. The download completed just as another explosion rocked the roof. Rook grabbed her equipment and ran for the fire escape, Kael and Silas close behind her. Bullets chased them across the open space, sparking off metal and shattering concrete. They reached the ladder and began climbing down as fast as they could. The security team appeared at the roof edge above them, but the angle made it difficult for them to get clear shots. Kael could hear them coordinating, probably calling for backup to surround the building. They dropped the last 10 feet to the alley below, landing hard on the broken pavement. Rook's equipment bag had taken a bullet, but the crucial data storage unit was intact. They had what they came for, but they were far from safe. "This way," Silas said, leading them through a maze of alleys and abandoned lots. Behind them, they could hear the security team spreading out to search the surrounding area. Searchlights swept the darkness, and the sound of helicopter rotors grew louder in the distance. They ran through the urban wasteland, using the ruins as cover while they made their way toward the subway tunnels that would take them back to the underground. Kael's neural stabilizer was wearing off again, and waves of disorientation washed over him as his damaged implant fought against the corrupted code. "Did we get it all?" he gasped as they paused in the shelter of a collapsed overpass. Rook checked her equipment, her augmented eye scanning the data they had stolen. "Everything," she said with grim satisfaction. "The complete target list, the activation protocols, even the identity of the person who designed the kill switch system." Silas asked. "Dr. Marcus Chen," Rook replied. "Just like you suspected, he's been planning this for years, building backdoors into every Cortex-Link implant manufactured since the beta testing program. But we stopped him. The neutralization code is already propagating through the network. The kill switches are being disabled as we speak." Kael felt a wave of relief wash over him, followed immediately by exhaustion. They had done it. They had stopped the mass assassination and gathered the evidence needed to expose the conspiracy. But the cost had been enormous, and he knew their troubles were far from over. "What now?" he asked. "Now we disappear," Rook said, shouldering her damaged equipment bag. "We've made enemies of some very powerful people tonight. They'll hunt us to the ends of the earth if they can, but at least we saved those lives. At least Lysander's death wasn't in vain." They made their way into the subway tunnels as the first light of dawn began to creep across the city. Behind them, the abandoned financial district swarmed with security forces, searching for the intruders who had struck at the heart of Synergenica's conspiracy. But the damage was done. The truth was out there now, spreading through the network like a virus of justice. The hunt would continue, but for the first time since Lysander's death, Kael felt like they had won a victory. It might not be the end of the war, but it was a battle that mattered, and sometimes that was enough. Length, medium chapter completed. Assessment, successfully executed the climactic infiltration mission while maintaining tension throughout. Balanced action sequences with character development and technical exposition. Delivered on the arc's promise of confronting the conspiracy while setting up future conflicts. Maintained focus on the core relationship between Kael and Rook while advancing the larger narrative. Editor notes, key narrative choices aligned with ARC black market fragments delivered the promised infiltration and data theft while revealing Dr. Dewar. Marcus Chen as the architect. Character development focusing on Kael's determination despite his deteriorating condition and Rook's technical expertise under pressure. Style consistency maintained with conversational language and cyberpunk atmosphere. Connections to previous chapters through continuation of the neural stabilizer effects and the planned mission from Chapter 6. Structural considerations for flow and pacing, built tension through the infiltration, delivered action and revelation, ended with successful mission completion, but ongoing danger.